it's also for education. Unfortunately, education in this case is not forced, but the environment is forced. And finally, so thank you very much for the presentation of the group of research at this university. I really feel in line with the thesis that you showed. So just to suggest maybe in another occasion we'll have channels to focus a little bit more about the philosophy of action. Because I remind, for example, the philosophy of action on Elizabeth Hanscom, and she really focused on the problem of intention and intentionality. And so I think that maybe we can also include this distinction also in the proposal of a specific kind of future aid. So, but thank you, and so.
Thank you very much. Were very good questions. First of all, in my practice. However, and I said that in my experience, when I get in touch with psychologists, they usually know a lot of things how to do. They're really good at giving you like steps and what to do the first year, what to do the second year. They adapt to your conditions, to your circumstances, and it's very. And I mean, if you look at Thomas Lickona, which I think is one of the major ones of practical education in the last 3 decades, his books are amazing. He has not only he has good theory, but he also has like, hey, what to do, here are the steps, here are the appendices in which you can see these topics of discussions and how you have to organize the discussion to have a classroom meeting. It's the same with Marvin or with Maurice Elias, although he's more from the social emotional learning approach, but he has this social, emotional, and character development lab at Rutgers University. And he's also pretty much into like helping people how to generate this type of community or how to impact character. And on the other side, the philosophers that I work with, at least in my university, have this really good theories, but when they go and talk like this in schools or in universities, there's always a lot of people who ask at the end, oh, okay, so that's great, but what do I do now? When I go back to my school, what should I do? The same happens, although I think it's a little bit different with the Jubilee Center, but the Jubilee Center has this amazing framework, with clinicians, although we have a challenge here, by Marek and Andre, and you have all these virtues in these 4 different performance, moral, civic, and what's the last? Intellectual, And you have virtues in all those different, but okay. So we go back to the classrooms and we teach that you have these 4 categories and you have these 10, 15 virtues in each one of them. You should know what they all mean, and then is this going to get us where we want? Which I think will really connect with the next question, that what is good education? So, a phrase that I quote over Paul Houston, schools are perfectly designed for the students we're getting. If we don't like the results, we should redesign schools. So I think there are also a big discussion about which are the results that we want from schools, not only about the design, but like having a big discussion at the national level in the US about what are we trying to do in education, which is their mission, which is their purpose. And I think that the movement of character education in the 90s in the US is mostly about recovering the most noble and original purpose of education. If education is not about cultivating a virtuous character, then what is it about? Of course, I mean, we want children and everyone to have be able to do a good quality work. But they, as many researchers have said, will not only be judged by the quality of the work, but the quality of their character. And I guess that's it. I mean, we could discuss a little bit about the
Thank you. Well, I was thinking about your question. Thank you, Rita, very much. When I think about supportive environment, we can start from the state curriculum framework, state documents. If they are student-centered, they mean they are supportive for child development. In Croatia, we have childless, if I can say in a way, that our documents are theoretically pro child development according to child's interests, according to child's abilities and his personality. On the other hand, state documents are not enough. We need teachers' practice that also applies those ideas and teachers' implicit pedagogies that appreciate child. So that was the next level for me to think about supportive environment. Teacher to create a space in classroom that will socially, emotionally empowerment for children. I don't know if I said it right, but that child in my classroom, as a teacher I'm thinking, feels safe, feels accepted, feels to be embraced as a relevant person in my life and relevant person in the classroom. For me, that is supportive environment. And also we can speak about material support, that if you want to enhance someone's development on any aspect, we must provide also material, some material assets that can help them function or reach the goal that we have set. So I'm not sure if that's the answer, but
probably nobody expects answer from us.
You have to say yes to Elsa. They will incorporate Elsa Badamski.
But may I use the possibility for to put the question to Professor Forrest as we finish his lecture. I constructed my question and I will try to repeat it again. My impression of your lecture was that the relationship between forensics and Julia is somehow one direction. And forensics somehow cultivates friendship for components, but isn't the relationship also opposite direction? Julia cultivates forensics, or the question should be also what does motivate for us to be more from also to be to gain or to where is the motivation, where the motivation rises to build our practical knowledge. No, we can. Sorry,
Is he muted by?
Okay. Moments. Not now. Not now. And now?
How about now?
Yes, yes.
Am I coming through? Okay, good. I really appreciate your question at the end of the talk. You quoted from 1 Corinthians.
Sorry, you lost the sound. Now?
Can you use the sign language?
Still. Yes, this is the story of 2 years of COVID. Looking for technical problems. So,
Все? Стойте. Dáme mikrofon tomto? Zkusíme, no. Pojď.
Powers? Yeah, okay, it's better. Okay.
Got it? Okay. So let's try again. I appreciate your question a lot at the end of the talk. You quoted from 1 Corinthians, I believe, chapter 13, if I remember correctly, which is one of the most beautiful chapters in the New Testament. Am I coming through? Okay, great. I have a number of answers to this. From an Aristotelian perspective, the relationship really is one direction, with phronesis being meta virtue and virtue like friendship, virtue like generosity, virtue like loyalty, being guided by phronesis. And that is the arrangement so that we can harmonize different virtues, and we can work with different virtues in different situations. Now I can understand that in some perspectives, one might want to, or some situations, one might want to prioritize friendship or charity. I think St. Paul was talking about charity. It's an extremely critical Christian virtue, and it'd be really interesting to look into what Thomas Aquinas had to say about that, because he was the one who really integrated Aristotle with Christian belief. And he talked about charity being one of the godly virtues, one of the divine virtues. And so he might actually place it in a priority similar to what you're talking about. But I don't believe Aristotle would. So I tend to lean toward Aristotle and to favor phronesis as a meta virtue. As important as friendship is, I think we need to think about how to be wisely friends. Well, how to be wise friends, not just to be friends. And I'm not sure the practical wisdom should be modified in the other direction. So that would say, well, we have to be friendly to be wise. But sometimes it's not wise to be friendly. That there are people who we should probably not be friendly to because they're interested in harming us, and they're not willing to consider our well-being at all. So I think wisdom in that sense is to be more self-protective than friendly. So that's a brief answer to your question. I think it's a good one. We're thinking about why would I prioritize phronesis over belief? And so that's the reason.
Right. Thank you. You would like to.
In this direction, I want to ask the question to you. If you think that friendship can be some kind of meta virtue, or I don't know, I would like to understand the implication of the theory, how friendship is going to regulate other virtues, if it has regulatory function. Probably I'm too much Aristotelian in lining to interpret the phronesis and moral virtues. So I want to know the implication of your theory, how you are going to explain other virtues in terms of friendship as a main virtue, regulatory virtue, or I don't know, what is the status of friendship in your theory?
So was that question directed at me or to the other panelists?
Yes, to the other panelists.
Okay,
Yep.
so I thought.
It's better for me because it's in Slovak because it's from explaining in English. Maybe then we can learn outside that. Myslím si, že to je otázka interpretácie Aristotela samotného.
So it's the question of the interpretation of Aristotle himself.
Je pravda, že Aristoteles hovorí, že phronesis je akási metasmus. tiež je pravda, že aj pri spravodlivosti hovorí, že je to najväčšia cnosť.
So it's true that Aristotle says that phronesis is meta virtue, but at the same time, he says that justice is one of the meta or big virtues.
A keď v 8. a 9. knihe Tomášovej hovorí o priateľstve, tak na začiatku hovorí, že priateľstvo je niečo ako cnosť a možno je to aj cnosť sama, nevieme presne, čo to je.
And Aristotle in his Nicomachean Ethics in book 8 and 9 says that, well, friendship is like a virtue, maybe it's a virtue itself, but
A keď hovorí o spravodlivosti, tak hovorí, že spravodlivosť je cnosť kvôli druhým a nie kvôli sebe.
and when he speaks about justice, he said justice is a virtue because of for the others, not for itself or in itself.
Pre neho spravodlivosť nie je equality, to nie je rímsky koncept spravodlivosti.
So justice for Aristotle is has not much to do with the Roman understanding of justice as equality.
A teda Aristoteles sám prepája spravodlivosť a filia ako akúsi náplň cnosti. Ak by sme sa mohli vyjadriť pojmami materia a forma, filozofickými pojmami, neviem, či sa to dá, ale možno by to bola byť určitá metafora. Phronesis sme mohli chápať ako formu a filia ako materia.
So Aristotle himself links, was it so he connects justice to philia, and even though the metaphor doesn't go all the way through, we said that one is as a form, another the matter. So phronesis would be the form, and just philia would be the matter.
Úplne sa stotožňujeme s tým, ako hovorí profesor Powers, že phronesis bez filia nie je možná, ale myslíme si, že ani filia bez phronesis nie je možná. Že je to ako určitá podoba hylemorfizmu.
So I agree with Professor Paulus that you can't have philia without phronesis, but at the same time that you can't have it the other way around. So it seems to be kind of a hylomorphism.
Lebo phronesis nám sama o sebe neposkytuje obsah.
Because phronesis itself doesn't give you the content on itself.
Ale vzťah k druhému nám poskytuje veľmi empirický, tak povedať, fenomenologický, rekonštruovateľný.
But the relationship to the other gives us empirical content or content we can reconstruct even.
Keď tu bola otázka od Emízy, ale myslím, že ona sa pýtala, čo je to dobro? Veľká otázka na začiatku Nicomacheovej. My sa pokúšame odpovedať, že dobro to si ty, ktorý stojíš predo mnou.
So when Lisa was asking what is goodness, big question posed at the beginning of the Nicomachean Ethics, so they answer that the good or goodness is the other person standing in front of you or in front of you, so you are the good.
The good is the goal. The goal is the resource.
So the Tao, as in Martin Luther's philosophy of the Bible.
Dobrý deň, ja sa vám predstavím, volám sa Štefania Perková, Univerzita Komenského v Bratislave, mám dve otázky, neviem, či môžem naraz, dvoch rôznych ľudí zvládneme. Juan, chcem sa najprv opýtať, kolega Martin Presovanský to načrtol v jednom vstupe, že praktická tá časť tých krásnych 6 princípov vášho modelu, či by sa to dalo nejako v krátkosti načrtnúť, ako to v školách robíte. A pre kolegov z kodanského týmu mám otázku. Úžasná dáta, kopec práce a veľká výzva, pretože bežia zmeny v rámci kurikula. Mohli by ste povedať, aké máte ďalšie plány, ako to chcete urobiť, to hlavne, čo ste zhrnuli v tom záverečnom slajde, alebo záver, že ako to chcete prekopať tú etickú výchovu, ak nám to môžete povedať, aké máte plány, čo s tým ďalej. Budú chýbať metodiky, učebnice, učiteľia sú na to, nie sú pripravení, či možno, neviem, v akej ste fáze, či niečo plánujete ďalej, ak môžete, tak nám približiť viac. Ďakujem.
Your question is, how do you practice or put into practice those 6 principles at schools? How do you go about them in practice?
How much time do you want me to?
I can give you examples of some of the principles, and maybe use one of them. I mean, one clear example would be there's a principle that I'm trying to help in Latin American country. And he has a lot of troubles. We went there, we had a training for him in school. And at the end, he was very excited. And he was looking forward for the next year. And he said, Juan Pablo, now I know which is the mission that I want from this school. And I thought, just tell me what this mission. He said, I want that every child will do the right thing, even when no one is watching. And he said, sounds really nice. There's a congratulations, but I hope you get it. And I'm looking forward to see you next year and see what happens. So the year passed by, I went in there again, and it was like, just what happened? And he said, oh, you're not going to do it. The rates on stealing in the classroom dropped. The fightings that were happening outside the school dropped. The paintings or graffiti that we were having in the garden dropped. And I was like, this is amazing. There's a congratulations. You really achieved it. So what do you do? And he said, look, cameras. We have 2 cameras in each classroom. Cameras in the cafeteria, cameras outside the school, cameras inside the school, cameras in the garden. And I was like, yes, but you said that you wanted your children to be good even when no one was watching. But now someone is always watching. You won't be able, what are they going to do, your children, when they go out of school and they are not being recorded? And he was, I know, but everyone's so happy right now, you know? The administrators are showing me off to other schools, saying, hey, look, you got it, no, you should follow. So it's very seductive to, when we have results, when we want to have quick results. You know, this kind of approach is to be very seductive for principals, for educators, but we have to remember that we are not in the control business. You know, putting video cameras is a control mechanism, but it's not a developmental initiative, it's not educational, it's not, you know. So it's going to take a lot of time to do things without video cameras to achieve that. But that's what we have to do. That's would be to use the last of the principle, the developmental perspective, not be looking into quick results, you know, that usually come from behaviors, come from control. But looking to the development of children, looking at, hey, the results that we want to see in these children are 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20, 30 years. What kind of citizen would this be? And we have to keep a look over them. That's one thing, but maybe if you want, we can have a longer conversation afterwards.
Otázka bola taká veľmi slovenská, ale to sa týka nášho slovenského kultúra, ktoré sa teraz práve vytvára. Je pravda, že sme tak trochu aj z názoru, že niektorí viac zapojení v rámci tej prípravy, ale nie sme teda tam jediní. Prvá otázka bola, že čo tam bude nové, ale teda sú, že ako by sa to. Po tej stránke akoby školsko-politickej, potom budeme hovoriť trošku viac asi zajtra ráno, má prísť aj zástupca MIMAMu, ktorý o tom niečo chce povedať, na tom sa podelím spolu o tom, čo povieme. povedať, že v podstate nejde o žiadnu ruptúru, o žiadnu revolúciu, o žiadnu nejakú koniec starého a začiatok nového. Je to v podstate podobný, alebo skoro ten istý, takto inovovaný koncept, ktorý bol doteraz. Keď si pozrieme štandardy, tak to bude veľmi podobné. To, čo sme ukazovali ako inovačné prvky, sú určité akcenty, ktoré by sme chceli zdôrazniť. A ten prvý z tých akcentov bolo, že posilniť ten morálny rozmer sociálnosti tými pojmami cnosti alebo charakteru. V podstate nič sa obsahovo nemení oproti pôvodným intenciám, tak povedať, zakladateľov. To sa používa trošku iný jazyk a z tej praxe vyplýva, že ten aspekt morality sa nám dosť uniká z toho, čo sa nazýva existencia. Takže prvá vec. Druhá vec je možno tá modalita alebo spôsob. To som možno takú malú poznámku, že to, ako učiteľ sa aj doteraz držal pôvodných metodík etickej výchovy, tak nebude mať absolútne žiadny problém robiť to aj na tom. A ak to robil dobre, Čiže problém bol väčšinou, že sa to nerobilo tak, ale nerobí tak, ako sa to bázi malo. To, čo sme my trochu, ako aj výskumne viac rozvinuli na našom týme, je vlastne aj procesuálna stránka etickej výchovy, a to pokiaľ ide o dialogický prístup v rámci hodín etickej výchovy a pokiaľ ide o morálnu reflexiu zážitkov, ktoré mám. Tieto dva prvky v rámci hodín etickej výchovy sme sa snažili rozpracovať, rozanalizovať a na tom ďalej ešte pracujeme. Lebo máte viac zapojený skôr v tej takej vychádzajúcej fáze tvorby metódy a podpornosti.
I don't know, it is interesting also for international study here, but the question was about further development of the conception here. Andre explains the general model and the general idea was that it's not the change and the conceptual change of conception. It's only the deepening this conception through empirics. And the practice, education practice, will support this deepening by dialogic teaching approach. We try to establish networks of ethical education teachers, creating groups of teachers, creating reflective communities of teachers to reflect their abilities to manage the dialogic teaching in their practice of ethical education. And the second column or supporting principle of this deepening ethical education conception will be the structure of moral reflection. So we elaborate the model of how to do the reflection, the moral reflection. It has 4 pages, and yes, it guides teacher to be effective in a moral reflection during lessons. So the next year will be dedicated to implementing and researching the implementation practice of these issues.
Thank you. Further questions?
Hello, I'm Zlatica Jursanaka from Bratislava. I'm psychologist, and this may be the question because I would only like to have a little bit clarification of the habituation. How do you understand habituation? Because you said that the habituation is more important than if I understood it well and remember well, than as a learning, etc. But in my knowing of habituation, maybe I would not understand it the same way from the cognitive psychology, etc. So I would like to know what is your connotation in this watch habituation? What do you understand, and how do you take the watch in your theory, in your system?
Alebo systematicky. Pri tom pojme sa snažíme opäť implementovať v podstate Aristotelovskú povahu cnosti ako niečo, čo pretrváva. Niečo, čo je fixované, dá sa povedať, že je dynamické a stále zároveň. Ale
their understanding of habituation is they stem from Aristotelian understanding of something with endurance, something fixed, something which stays.
Nie je to obyčajný návyk, pretože ako náhle by sa cnosti stal návyk, prestal byť cnosťou.
So virtue in this sense is not a mere habit, because if it were to become a habit, it wouldn't be a virtue.
Ale cnosť bez určitej trvalosti, stálosti, určitého skeletu, ktorý si človek neustále vytvára, vlastne vôbec nie je cnosť.
But at the same time, to be a virtue, there needs to be this endurance, this stability, this kind of like this fixed skeleton which stays.
Dali sme to do určitého zámerného, ako didakticky zámerného opozita k kognitívnym spôsobilostiam, práve preto, aby sme poukázali, tak to inak poviem, že Aristoteles hovorí, že ak viem, čo je cnosť, to ešte neznamená, že som cnostný.
So Aristotle himself says that if I know what virtue is, it doesn't mean I'm virtuous.
A teda okrem poznatkov potrebujeme ešte ďalšie fakulty ľudské alebo pohodlnosti, ktoré prostredníctvom výchovy posilňujeme. A toto je jedna z nich, nie jediná, ale jedna z nich. Po tej stránke psychologickej možno nájdeme trochu viac povieť, lebo viem, že psychológia trošičku.
So that was meant to say that apart from knowledge, there's still something more required, some other faculties of virtue to be in place. Another question?
So maybe from us who are not so much scholars, what about the turkey? Give me a presentation plan.
There is a story that I had a teacher, a business teacher, that used to read this a lot. And the story is like this: there's a daughter who is with her mom. They're cooking dinner for Thanksgiving Day. It is usually in the United States, the dinner, turkey. No? So she's preparing the turkey, but she puts the things inside the turkey, and regularly people just put it in the oven. No? But no, her mother cuts the turkey in half and puts only half of the turkey in the oven. And the daughter asks, Mom, she knows that she regularly does this on Thanksgiving Day. She asks, why are we putting half the turkey in the oven and not the other half? And she says, well, this is an old recipe that comes from your grandmother. It's been in our families for many generations. And so the child, initially would just say, okay, that's fine. But no, this child says, okay, but why? And she says, I really don't know. This is the way that my grandmother taught me, and I've been doing it my whole life. But hey, let's go and see your grandmother and ask her. No? So they go to the grandmother house and they ask, hey, grandmother, why did you cut the turkey in half and put it in the oven? And she says, oh, because your great grandmother taught me that we should put half the turkey first and the other half afterwards. So luckily for the daughter, the great grandmother was alive, so they went to the elderly house and they asked the great grandmother, hey, why do we have the turkey half and put it in the oven? And she said, oh, darling, Well, back in those years, we were living in the farm, we had a small house, and we had a very small oven. And the whole party wasn't able to be inside the oven at the same time. So we didn't have it, the 100 and 1 later. But it would be more convenient to put it on if you have a big oven, no, because then the inside of the turkey won't get dry. So this is just an example because in intrinsic motivation, you don't only talk about having the right motivations to do things, not only thinking about children, but also thinking of a process of education. Why do we do things? Why do we implement these practices? What are we trying to achieve? The same as with this just directory. Hey, you put cameras, but what you want is that children behave even when no one's looking, but now everyone's looking, so this doesn't make sense. Why are we doing this? So sometimes many other things that we do them by the only reason, or maybe mostly because we have been doing them a long time, or because that's the way that we do things. And it could be fun, but sometimes the tensions that were in the origin, that originated that particular practice, have disappeared. Or we have different intentions now, and we should look for something different to solve the whatever is stressing in our circumstances. And that's it. Other questions?
Thank you. So that I can ask my question then. Towards the end, I think this is a fitting question. And I would just pose it to any of the speakers today. So if anyone wants to come in, raise your hand, who wants to interact, even you, Professor. And the question is, would you say, or in other words, many of you said that when it comes to virtue ethics, Aquinas, develops Aristotle. It's a sequel to Aristotle, or so there is this gradual kind of process of thinking between these two theories. But on the other hand, some people would say these are opposed to each other. The Aristotelian virtue ethics and the Aquinas or Thomistic virtue ethics is fundamentally different in many ways. We just saw a few inklings of this. For example, between the tension when it comes to phronesis and philia, but we don't have to stay with philia, we can go all the way up to love as a divine virtue. So how do you think about this relationship? Because it's usually started with Aristotelian virtue ethics, because it's more secular, so to speak. So it doesn't immediately jump into any religious talk. But how do you think about this? Anyone? You've got 10 minutes.
I'd be happy to weigh in on that, if that makes sense.
Yes, please.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's a really important question because in this particular era, in a lot of Western countries in particular, Christianity is extremely important. I live in the United States. Christianity is really important, more important even than many places in Europe. So it's important to keep in mind what's the relationship between Aristotle and Christian belief. And sometimes that relationship is very easy and congenial, and sometimes there's friction. And I don't think of St. Thomas Aquinas as a next step for Aristotle. I see him as a bridge to this Christian world and to the somewhat more modern one. He lived a long time ago, but much more modern than Aristotle. And so Aristotle, we have to remember, was pre-Christian, so he wasn't thinking in those terms. You will never see the word charity or even a reasonable translation of charity in the Nicomachean Ethics. But for Aquinas, that's really important, and that makes sense. And so I think in some ways it goes back to the first question about the good. What do we think the good is? Well, different societies, different belief systems have different versions of the good. There isn't just one. It's not just one right way to do everything and one good that we're all going to contribute to. But we have different traditions that tell us different things that are worth participating in and contributing to. So Aristotle, he understood the good life in very much this worldly terms. he didn't really think about any next world, or he wasn't really, I mean, the divine comes into his discussion somewhat, but it's in a very different way than we think about it. But for Aquinas, the next world was extremely important, and the divine was extremely important. One of the things you mentioned is that charity, for example, can be very abstract. It can apply to all of humanity. Aristotle doesn't have any room for it. There's no way to think about and react to the entirety of humanity. We're always dealing with the contemporary situation in front of us. So these are some of the tensions that I think are important to draw out. And then we can think about, well, what do we want to do with those tensions? Do we feel more comfortable with the Christian worldview, with this potential for greater abstraction and greater generality, or do we feel more comfortable with the situation-specific Aristotelian approach? But in either case, we're picking certain goods over others. And I think that's another way to consider the two options, is what goods do we really want to pursue, or which ones do we want to promote? The story about the turkey is great, because that's another question about this. What's most important here? A nice juicy turkey, or the way my grandmother used to do it because they're almost. You could say, well, preserving tradition is what's most important. But we want to keep doing that because we value it. Or we could say, no, we really like the juicy turkey, so we're going to do it a different way. So again, it comes down to choosing which goods we think are predominant or most important. So that's my thought.
Thank you for this very nice question. And teraz poprosím potom Jakuba, aby si to tak povedal. Mne sa zdá, že jednoduchá odpoveď mohla byť, že ten základný rozdiel medzi Aristotelom a Tomášom je nauka o milosrdenstve.
So he thinks what I think, but one of the main difference, one of the main differences simply would be between Aristotle and Aquinas, the teaching about grace. Okay. Mercy.
Pre Aristotela milosrdenstvo je afekt, je pocit.
So for Aristotle, mercy would be an affection, would be a feeling.
Ale pre Tomáša Akvinského je to najväčší prejav ľudskej lásky, ako dokáže človek prejaviť.
But for Aquinas, on the other hand, it's one of the biggest expressions of philia, so to speak, that one is capable of.
Keď Akvinský analyzuje priateľskú lásku, tak hovorí o prejavoch a milosrdenstvo je najdokonalejší prejav priateľskej lásky.
So when Aquinas analyzes philia, friendly love, he says that mercy is one of the most perfect expression of friendly love.
Takže mi sa zdá, že ten rozdiel medzi Aristotelom a Akvinským je práve v tom, že pre Akvinského priateľská láska je to najväčšou cnosťou, aký človek dokáže byť.
So this seems to be the key difference. For Aquinas, friendly love is the key virtue, is the most perfect self-realization.
A naopak pre Aristotela je to práve tá phronezis, ktorá je tým kľúčovým komponentom každej morálnej cnosti. Ale je to práve tá phronezis. A teda Aristotelov pohľad je naozaj viac racionálny a kontemplatívny.
And for Aristotle to be phronesis, which is still this meta virtue, which is then makes it more rationalistic and contemplative.
Ďakujem.
Yeah.
Well, maybe just one thing. I really like what you proposed as, or having this different perspective in which the unifying virtue is not phronesis, but friendship. It reminds me, and also what you were saying before, Andres, about Aristotle in the Mechanics talks about justice. He talks about particular justice and general justice. Not particular justice, the object of particular justice is the law, and there are more virtues and justice according to the law, to the agreement, to the rights of the citizens. But general justice is like the overall virtue. contribute to that guides or to see that every other virtues aligns to the good. And what Blaine was saying about which would be this good, I think St. Thomas Aquinas, you haven't said anything about the common good, which I think is something very relevant in St. Thomas Aquinas, as the most perfect good of all. No? I don't know how to define it quickly, but it would be like creating the optimal conditions for everyone in the community to flourish or to achieve good harmony. And that's what's most proper of a virtuous person. Trying to find out what they should do in a certain community and what people are trying to contribute to everyone to flourish. So, and I don't know if this strictly has to happen in the relationship of friendship. I think many things happen in a relationship of friendship, and I would surely try to promote it, and I think it's the best way we can grow. But sometimes the common good will demand from us to even to be there, to do things, even when we don't have a friendship relationship. And that's it.
Just a very brief suggestion, because I was very impressed by the first answer about our online school. Maybe you can hear me? Yeah. Yeah, he can hear me. Okay. About your question, I remind the passage in which you speak with me. No.
Yes.
No, I'm referring to the question maybe.
No, he's just thinking. You've been thinking about the turkey?
Okay, so this question,
No, speak. No, not yet. Continue. He said.
I'm just referring to the question made at the beginning. So I remind this passage about, for example, when he speaks about bodies, of course, and so I think that the point is to try to decide if we have to, as Socrates or as Pericles. You know, Pericles tried to be virtuous looking to the circumstances, so to a particular situation. And on the other part, Socrates started to be virtuous considering what is true in itself. And I think that when I also in the talk this morning, I underlined the conception of his rediscovery of our religious enlightenment, Christian enlightenment. It was just this point, because referring to the example of the movement, for example. I mean, there is a way to tradition that is just to, you say, enlarge the context and give value to all positive aspects that we can find in a community. On the other part, there is a way also to consider tradition as for something that is also true in this tradition. And I think it's the point of the crisis of Europe. Because right now in Europe, everything could be alive with tradition, but not exactly there is this question of why. And I think so that just to answer you, and I really agree with the fact that Thomas wants to be a bridge between Aristotle and the religion, because it's exactly the point to decide about this why. Because just being virtuous would be virtuous. I mean, I'm not really convinced about this virtue excess for the flourishment of a subject. I think it's not enough at this point. We have to try to reach the real content of the truth. Also in a community being virtuous. This is the difference. That was just answered. Thank you.
Okay, could, maybe the moderator could restate that for me. I'm having a lot of trouble with the acoustics of the room. It might be great there, but it's hard over there.
Right, so I'll do my best. Please correct me if I'm mis-summarizing you. So the key point to distinguish, well, not Aquinas, well, I'll just add something mine to it maybe, Aquinas from Aristotle, but it would be to set them aside from people like Pericles or Nietzsche, who would say there's virtue ethics is based on the will to power, not will to truth. So that would be basically that Aquinas could be said to be the bridge from Aristotle to the modern ages through the emphasis on phronesis as the truth seeking, the answer to the why question, okay, the intentionality and the why question of Socrates. So that was basically hopefully a restatement.
Okay, well, it's a good thing we have several hours to talk about that, isn't it? That's a big question. I think, I take your point about modernity and Nietzsche's influence on that very well, because he has had a big influence. And one of the things we could end up doing is using virtue ethics as a way to enforce conformity and force people to be part of the herd mentality that Nietzsche talked about. I don't think any of us want to do that. So we have to find a way that we don't do that. And one of the ways, you can't hear me?
Yes.
Oh, you can. Okay. So one of the ways we can not do that is, I think, through the concept of flourishing. Because what we can do is we can say that the reason that we're pursuing virtue, that we want to teach it, that we want people to be virtuous, is so that people can flourish. I don't mean just individuals, I mean also society. It's very much about the politics of the city as a whole that Aristotle taught. People may or may not know that the Nicomachean Ethics is essentially an introduction to politics, where he thought the real action was. That it's the states people, the people in charge of the government who are legislating, that decide how to help a population become virtuous. So I think and the reason that flourishing works as a way not to be a tyrant about this is that flourishing has to be alive and well in everyone. So it's not something I can do or say that you must do. You must flourish. That's a contradiction in terms. So I can say, here I'm going to set up these conditions that will allow you to do well in life if you want to. It's up to you. You get to decide. You get to decide what a good life looks like for you. I don't get to decide that. So I think that's one way we can work around this will to power, this kind of tyranny that Nietzsche was so focused on. And he's a great example of how we, I think, want to not do virtue. His view was that virtue was a weakness philosophy. But I don't see it that way at all, because I don't really think the will to power is as basic as he thought it was. I think we're interested in one another. We care about each other. That's a normal human kind of emotion and way of orienting ourselves. There are a few people who are more interested in power than other people, but most of us are very interested in having close relationships that are good for everyone involved. And I think that's the key thing, to focus on what's good for the people involved, not something that's good for somebody who calls themselves the leader or the boss. So that's a brief answer to that. I think we could probably have a number of drinks and have a long discussion with Nietzsche and virtue. And if I were there, I would love to do that. So it's another way that I regret not being there.
And on this sad note, we have to conclude this panel discussion. So once again, please join me thanking my panelists. And thank you all for coming, and what's up next?
I see a program behind in front of me. There is a time, how fast time. It is in 5 minutes, if possible. I will suggest 15 minutes of coffee break. It is enough for you before the selection part. We will divide to 2 sections. So the first one we will start here, and the second one we will move to the red salon. Okay, we only a small change in this moment. So, if you don't have any organizational questions, you have asked. If not, in 15 minutes we can start like it's up to you. The decision here and the rest. So I would like to very much say a great thanks to Professor Blaine Powers. Thank you very much. Really,